Oh, let me tell you something. Busting makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate the movies. I'm your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, my good friend, one of my oldest friends in comedy, Ken Garr.
Like 4 years in LA is a long friendship, or 5 years. You know what I mean?
Dude, it's crazy. It's you know how crazy it is that I started looking you up on Wikipedia instead of typing in the movie that we're supposed to be talking about today. Just because I love you so much, Ken.
Aww.
Ken is a great comic, and we go way back.
Yeah.
He and I moved out here roughly around the same time. We both broke up with very significant others at the same time. It's and now we're here both wearing black sweatshirts.
Yep.
Here in the new sort of studio. Not really. This is my new apartment. Can we call it a studio?
It's a really nice apartment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Well, once I start getting it looking like a real place, I'll actually film episodes again. Until then, we're going audio only. But oh boy, I can't wait for you guys to see. We did some real design bloggy kind of shit.
I just did a remodel of my apartment because, like, when you move to LA, you're like, all right, I'm going to go to IKEA, get all IKEA stuff because I'm going to be in a mansion in like 2 years. So why bother?
Of course.
And then like 5 years later, you're like, I think I'm going to be living here for a while in my 2-bedroom in Studio City. So I like painted the whole apartment, got like new furniture, new bookshelves. And I'm like, and it looks really great. Another comedian, Michael Malone, loves interior design.
That's the right move. You get somebody who understands interior design.
Yeah.
That's the way my girlfriend, she understands it. And she's like, okay, cool. Then make sure you get a lamp that doesn't look terrible.
Right.
And, how about lamps?
Oh, yeah.
Let's fuck fluorescent lighting. Overhead lighting is garbage. Let's get a nice warm glow going in here.
You do. It sets the tone for the whole room.
Yeah.
I've learned all the terminology. It's like everything centers around like a piece. And I'm like, what is a piece? He's like, don't worry about it. Like, we're just going to find a piece. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
So now I got my like new apartment in my old apartment, but it looks great and I feel settled in.
You know, it's interesting. We've both been in LA such a long time, and I didn't even really think about it until we started recording the episode.
Yeah.
But the movie you've chosen to talk about is a very LA movie.
Yes.
One of not just any very LA movie, a movie that is a movie I have seen on lists about the most iconic Los Angeles movies.
Yeah.
And that movie is none other than Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia.
Yeah.
Ken?
I hate it.
Why? Why you hate it?
Here's the deal. All right. So I saw it in the theater in 99. And I think I was 22 years old.
Okay.
And I loved Boogie Nights so much that I just like, let's absolutely. I'm on board. And, the movie starts off with this really cool narration by Ricky Jay, who recently passed, actually.
Right.
And like of all these like coincidences that took place. And then it sets in motion 11 main characters, which is a lot of characters.
It's a lot.
There's a lot of storylines going on.
The old ensemble drama move.
Yeah. And so then I'm thinking, like, there's going to be this huge payoff, and then it just starts raining frogs, and then a bunch of crying, and then the fucking credits start rolling. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? I rewatched it yesterday. Now, I will tell you, as a 41-year-old man who also has lived in Los Angeles for 5 years,
right? I
did not hate it as much, but I feel like every director flexes his muscles.
Oh, for sure.
Right? So, like, Christopher Nolan just had his muscle flexing with that war movie, right? Oh, it's so gorgeous and all these, like you know what I mean? It's so well, like, he's basically like, look, I'm going to show you
talk
real
about
quick.
Interstellar, too. Interstellar, the most muscle flexing-y movie in Christopher Nolan's arsenal.
Yeah.
And there's something about those kinds of movies that do tend to make for a bad movie.
Yes.
I hated Interstellar.
Okay.
And I love Christopher Nolan as a director, but Interstellar, I think, is one of the absolute worst, most pretentious garbage movies.
Yeah.
And this movie is, and I said this before we got on the air, but Paul Thomas Anderson is one of my, actually probably my favorite working director.
Really?
Paul Thomas Anderson, my favorite movie of all time is There Will Be Blood.
Oh, great movie.
I love There Will Be Blood. I love his whole body work. Boogie Nights is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Phantom Thread was such like a wonderful surprise.
Didn't see it.
It's really good, and I saw that, and basically the only reason I saw it, I was like, Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson, Daniel Day-Lewis working together again. Okay,
yeah,
it's fucking great. And I remember watching Magnolia.
Right.
And I was hearing all these great things about it, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is the movie."
Right.
And I was underwhelmed.
Yes. And Paul Thomas Anderson, up until I think he said this in like 2007, so clearly he's made more movies since then, said like, this will probably be my best movie ever. Now, here's a couple of the problems that I had, and I'm not a film critic, you know what I mean? I'm like meat and potatoes kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like, if I have a cold, like Armageddon is my movie. You know what I mean? Like that's so I just want to set the base level.
You're a real
like
TNT ass kind of dude.
Right. Like, oh, Shawshank's on again? Cool, I'll watch that. But here's the deal. Like, I just felt everyone was trying so hard in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of the actors, the acting is brilliant, but like the deal is like every scene, everyone is trying to win an Oscar. You know what I mean? Like Philip Seymour Hoffman playing this unbelievably awful hospice nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think about it, the worst hospice nurse ever, getting involved in the family's lives, reaching out to the estranged son. Like you've crossed so many boundaries.
He's violating all kinds of HIPAA codes.
Oh my God.
Stuff. You should not be getting involved in shit like this, guy.
Right.
Man.
He spills the morphine pills all over, the dogs die. He's just like, oh, I'm on hold with the estranged son, but all the morphine's just all he's the worst hospice. Is this his first patient?
I think it must be.
It was awful.
If Philip Seymour Hoffman, and coming off of playing in Boogie Nights.
So great. His character in Boogie Nights, amazing.
But it's like it's almost like if that guy had gotten out of the porn industry and just became a hospice nurse, just like a fucking bumbling idiot. Like
he just looks at Jason Robards like, "Can I kiss you?"
And he spilled the pills. And he just thinks, "I'm a fucking idiot, man. I'm a fucking idiot."
His car's outside. His red car. You like my car?
So the whole movie is, and it's first of all, it's so long. It's over 3 hours long.
188 minutes. And Paul Thomas Anderson has said in like podcasts that it was too long and he would cut more of it.
Yeah.
But
it's
so long, and then the scenes. Like, here's my thing. I understand the theme of the movie. The theme of the movie is like you can fuck kids up, like right? Like that's the theme. And there's like this whole like redemption and forgiveness and like deathbed kind of like thing.
And there's the biblical allegories and stuff too, with like the raining of the frogs, and there's all kinds of stuff. It feels very Old Testament in the way that it's like, hey, you could fuck a kid up. And everything that to change the whole trajectory of their life, and it could all wind up going to shit. Look at this.
Yeah, and then, but then you have like these scenes where there's just so much dialogue, and there's just like like Tom Cruise, who actually got nominated for an Oscar for this role, is so out of his depth. You know what I mean? And like, you know what I mean? But like, you got the Oscar nod. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they're just like, yeah, here's your training day. You know, Denzel, like we owe you one.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
did Tom Cruise? He didn't win the Oscar.
No, he didn't win the
though.
Oscar. No.
Has he ever won an Oscar before?
No.
My God, if ever there was a chance, I mean, this did seem very much like Tom Cruise is going to get his Oscar for this.
Yeah,
but didn't.
This was Paul Thomas Anderson going, look, I'm the hottest director right now.
Yep.
I made Boogie Nights for $9 million and it made 100 whatever. Like, they gave me carte blanche. I get final cut before they even agreed to do it. I want to work with all of these insanely like he pitched the script to George C. Scott, and George C. Scott was literally like, this is the worst script I've ever read, and then threw it at him.
Dude, this movie is just like here. This is one of my favorite quotes about the production of this movie. Is Michael DeLuca, the head of production at New Line Cinema, is the person who made the deal for Magnolia.
Yeah,
he gave Paul Thomas Anderson final cut guarantee without even hearing the idea
Right.
for the movie.
Right.
He didn't even know.
Yeah.
And historically, and this is something I didn't even think about this, but thematically, I've talked about this on other episodes. Anytime a studio does that, it's generally a big mistake.
Right.
It happened with Mother.
Yeah.
We know what happened with Darren Aronofsky after Mother.
Yeah.
I love that movie, but it's like
I love Mother.
they can
I think
never.
it's a great movie.
It's a great movie, but
Yeah.
also everybody's like, dude, what the fuck? And that's
Yeah.
basically what Paul Thomas Anderson did with this. He made his crazy, like, what the fuck movie.
Oh, yeah.
And a big, big gamble.
And he knew, he was quoted as saying is like, I knew they weren't going to give that to me after making this movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like anytime you make a movie based off of a lyric of a song, like, you know what I mean? Like how and then everything was just so character rich and driven and like everything so like you could have literally cut out, even though I love him as an actor, you could have cut out the whole William H. Macy storyline. You didn't
Right.
need that. Like I understood like his character was like in direct correlation to Stanley.
Right.
You know, and Stanley coming in at the end going like, you're mean to me, Dad. Don't be mean to me anymore. You need to be nice. And I'm like, and there's frogs flying everywhere. And
Right.
It was just a lot.
I think that there's a movie that exists in here that is a fucking phenomenal movie, and I
Yeah.
say that, and I liked this movie. I don't hate it to the depths that you hate it, Ken.
Yeah.
But there's just too much going on, and I
Yeah.
think that Paul Thomas Anderson became a victim of his own creative genius in this.
Oh yeah.
That's the real downside here, because I will say, if you separate the stories out of any of these other movies or of these plot lines, rather, with the acting talent you got in here, you got Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh yeah.
You got
The talent is undeniable.
you got Philip Seymour Hoffman,
Julianne Moore,
Tom Cruise, William H. Macy, Alfred Molina, John C. Reilly,
Jason Robards,
Melora Walters, Felicity Huffman's in this movie for a hot second.
Yeah.
This movie, Luis Guzman is in this movie.
Yeah.
Philip Baker Hall is great in this movie.
Oh yeah.
This movie is just top to bottom, feels like it should have won a lot more Oscars or at least got nominated for shit. And then all of a sudden, hey, let's
It
just
got 3 Oscar nominations.
Right.
One was for screenplay, one was for Tom Cruise, and I forget what the other one was for. Music. I think it was music.
It got I believe it got nominated for, I think, either best song or best score. Let me take a look.
Best song for Amy Mann.
Yes. Save Me.
Yeah.
And
and then what is that? Like in the middle of the movie, they're like, we're gonna make a music video real quick.
Right.
Where they're all singing fucking songs. I'm like, what is happening right now? Actually, this is the most LA movie ever because it's just too much.
It's so much.
You know what I mean?
And it's like, look at it's and not just LA in that, but it's also so much and saying, look at how cool I am.
Right.
Look at how great I'm doing.
Yeah.
This is a movie that is made for Instagram models to put gifs of before that's even a thing.
Right.
It's like the rain of the frogs raining down happens,
Right.
and it's like that's meme word. It's like when you're feeling sad and you have a bad relationship with your dad, and then frogs rain down.
Right.
Oh, silly! Tag that
Yeah.
hashtag fat Jew.
You can't be the lead in Days of Thunder and then have a deathbed scene with Jason Robards.
Nope.
You know what I mean?
You can't
Like,
do
I
it.
fucking hate you, cocksucker. Like, oh, calm down, Tommy. All right.
God,
It
Tom.
was.
I also just love the idea. I mean, if I were to wish for a spinoff for anybody in this movie, Tom Cruise is somebody who I would love to see his character get a spinoff.
Oh yeah.
Just because, have you ever gotten into investigating the world of pickup artist culture, Ken?
A little bit.
Dude.
Yeah, when that mystery guy came out, he had his own TV show.
He had his TV show for a couple seasons.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little bit of backstory about me. I don't know if I've ever told you this.
Okay.
When I was in high school, that was when all that TV show stuff was coming out with mystery.
Okay.
And I remember there was that book, The Game,
Yes.
that tracked mystery. And I got so obsessed with that book.
Really?
Because I was a fucking giant nerd
Uh-huh.
who didn't know how to talk to women. And now I at least know how to talk to women.
Yeah.
But at the time I was like, I'm hopeless. All of my friends have girlfriends. I will
Right.
never be loved. I'm 14. Of course it's all going to change, but I don't know this yet. So I start getting into pickup artist culture. And I started going to a website called becomeaplayer.com.
Of course.
And I started reading. I was volunteering at the library, and they had a copy of The Game at the library. And once I found that, I would take the copy and I would take like the cart of books that I was supposed to be shelving and I would move it around the library and then I would pretend to reshelve the same books for 2 hours and just read the game.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is going to be me. And I watched this movie and I was, and after I'd gone through like this phase, because I'm watching it in college, and I was like, oh man, they hit the nail on the fucking head with this guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like, I would love to see if Tom Cruise, if I want to see more about this character. I want to see more about all these characters than what we get in this movie.
Yes.
That's the thing.
And that's why there's too many characters.
It's trying to probe below the surface and it can't do it because it's too long and it follows too much.
Yeah. And again, I think it goes with the theme of this director he was only 28 when he wrote this thing, which is pretty impressive actually, to have some of the scenes, like there's so much depth. There's a lot there.
Right.
And there's a lot of great scenes. I thought Julianne Moore, her character was like amazing. But at the same time, although I haven't experienced a lot of death in my life, like I just don't think there's like these big, huge confessions at the end.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like there's this like, oh, I might have molested my daughter. Or I'm like, I cheated on you. Like I don't see that.
It's
you know
all there for the sake of cinema. That's it.
Right.
It's too contrived.
Yes, it's the perfect word. Yeah, and although in the backdrop of LA, like maybe this is realistic. You know what I mean?
Maybe there's a lot of contrived bullshit in
but
LA.
Then even like you take like the heroes of the movie, like John C. Reilly, okay, LA cop, that's hilarious, right? But even he's a fucking douchebag.
Yeah.
Like he like weasels his way into Melora Waters' apartment.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he puts her in this awkward position of like, can I have a cup of coffee? Like you're not, there's no redeeming value there.
No.
You're not like this like, oh, like down on my luck kind of guy, can't find a date. Like you're using your power to like fucking like corner this girl in her own apartment. I'm like, that's not a cool person.
No.
Like that's not a cool character.
It's sad, man. And it's like, take it from going from Boogie Nights to Magnolia. Boogie Nights, another one of these iconic LA movies.
Yeah.
Ensemble, drama, but not as you know what it feels like is that Magnolia, and I think this is probably part of because Paul Thomas Anderson was so young when he made this movie.
Yeah.
When you're that young and if you get artistic carte blanche that early on and you become the wonder kind, I can only imagine that it must feed into your worst impulses as a creative person.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, oh, I'm hot shit. So I'm going to throw everything that I can on this page and see if it pays off.
Yeah.
Because Boogie Nights wasn't trying to say anything sorry, hold on. I want to make sure I say this right because I had something here. Boogie Nights is a movie that is very entertaining and has a message to it. And the message is simple. The message is about what happens as people like give up their moral high ground and as people change over time and it's the death of innocence and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But it's all like one singular message.
Right.
And Magnolia kind of gets to a one singular kind of message at the end, sort of, but only sort of.
Right.
It's a movie that it's a movie that has all of this stuff where it's like we're trying to be deep, but you can't pin down what the movie is actually trying to say.
Yeah.
Like that's how, as a young man watching this movie, Ken.
Yes.
How did you feel going into it? Were you going in being like, this is one of the next great filmmakers?
Yeah.
What was it like for you?
Well, I'll be honest. I was a very immature 22-year-old. And so for me, I got hooked into like that in the opening scene with all these coincidences.
Right.
And then you literally spin 11 different stories going off. And I'm like, I cannot wait for the big payoff. Like that's how you know what I mean? So like now, like, I'm like, and then at the end, like literally fucking frogs fall from the sky. And I'm like, what is this bullshit? You know what I mean? And now, like, as a more mature guy who's like been divorced and like experienced life a little bit, and like now I understand, which is just like what he was trying to do with the frogs thing, which is just like you know, like again, I'll be careful with what I want to say, but it's just like Like, we're not in control of any of these things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes frogs just fall from the fucking sky.
Right.
You know, so I get that now as an older guy, but I wanted more of a payoff. Like, you have all of these really fucking amazing actors with some of the really amazing dialogue, but then at the end, it just, there was no, where's the payoff at?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I know, like, a lot, like, even There Will Be Blood, you know, at the end, one of the most, like, prolific endings of a movie.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's, like, insatiable narcissism and ego is like, I'm just going to fucking murder you on a, spoiler alert, I'm just going to murder you on a bowling alley in my mansion. You know what I mean? Like, because I can.
And I'm going to tell my son, I'm going to call my son a bastard in a basket.
Yeah.
And tell him that I wish I'd never found him.
Right.
And it's just like, cool.
Right.
It's a movie that's got a singular point of view at the very, that you understand.
Boogie Nights, fucking, here's my big dick, and no matter what, I'm going to get work.
I'm a big star.
Like, at the end of the day, I'm a big, bright, shining star, and I'm still going to get work. You know?
You know what? And this is Phantom Thread. He does this thing, and Phantom Thread is a much smaller movie. It's not as bombastic.
Yeah.
Even, and that's something that I think Paul Thomas Anderson does. He does a lot of bombastic kind of movies. The Master is like...
I enjoyed The Master.
It's a great movie, and it's got like at the end, it's like, oh man, sometimes the things we believe in can't save us.
Right.
And sometimes we have to kind of figure our own way out.
Yeah.
And not put trust in institutions. And that's told over this great grandiose story.
Right.
And Phantom Thread is such a small movie as far as like the kind of story that it tells, which is I think different than PTA has done.
Yeah.
Man, talking about him initial wise, like I'm like his pal. Me and PTA,
Getting
man,
real comfortable.
Getting real. I'm sitting sideways in my chair now, man. But so Phantom Thread is a movie that at its heart is about relationships, and that's as simple as I can put it. The very end of the movie is after this whole dynamic between between Daniel Day-Lewis's character and I forget the actress's name, but she's fantastic and she's great, and I think she got nominated for an Oscar for this, and if she didn't, she should have. But basically, they've done this sort of like cat and mouse, abusive sort of, not like it's the lines are blurred, kind of artist and creator and artist and muse relationship and romantic relationship. And then at the very end of the movie, it's revealed that she is poisoning him. Okay. To get out of, to try and kill him. And he catches on to it. And he's like, to basically, she poisons him to try and to get him sick so she can take care of him and be in the position of power. Okay. It's a very power dynamic, shifting kind of movie. Yeah. And it's so small, but this moment is played where she is cooking these poison mushrooms to put into his soup. And Daniel Day-Lewis notices it, and he knows, and you can tell that he knows. And she comes in and is ready to serve it to him, and it's just so small. And the recognition of like he knows exactly what she's doing, and she figures out that he knows, and they're both totally okay with it. And it's like, wow, sometimes people need to have like people's relationships are always going to be weird, and you're not going to know, and like you don't know why. It like power's an illusion in relationships, right? Like it doesn't really matter because if I guess. Love is stronger, but it's like, who knows? Right. But it's so small, and it's like, I like it's singular. Paul Thomas Anderson is great with a singular vision. Yeah, but multiply that times 11 characters in Magnolia, and it just becomes overwhelming. Who do you wish didn't exist in this movie? I didn't need William H. Macy's storyline. He's a brilliant actor, and I love him. He's awesome in everything he does, but I didn't need that storyline, that whole like, I'm quiz show Danny whatever. I didn't need that. I don't even know if we needed Stanley. Like, I don't know if we needed that whole story. Like, you could have literally focused on Robards, Tom Cruise, Julianne Moore, and then maybe the game show and his daughter. You know what I mean? Because like this is about like fucking up his parents. You know what I mean? And like, and the consequences that happen as a result of that. But like, I didn't need the John C. Reilly thing. I like, he tries to push these heroes in this movie, which is Stanley and John C. Reilly's characters. Like, we're good no matter what, and we're wholesome. And we're like, not really. Like, you pissed yourself. You know what I mean? Like, right. Like you don't have the backbone to ask a girl out without cornering her in the kitchen. So like, right. Even the heroes are like flawed. I mean, every hero is, but like, it just seemed like a lot of the storylines weren't really necessary for
the plot to move forward or to like then there wasn't a lot of intersecting either. You know what I mean? Like I don't think William H. Macy met any of the other characters other than John C. Reilly and I think that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like who else did he meet?
I don't think anybody else. And let me ask you this: as somebody who watched it so far apart, is there anything that you noticed this time around that you didn't notice before that you also that it made you dislike the movie in a different way? Because you came at it before from an admittedly immature point of view, and now you've had some life experience. Yeah. Something has changed, but you still don't like the movie. That didn't change.
So when I was 22, I didn't like that the movie didn't end with the big payoff on the coincidences. That there wasn't some intersection of all these characters and like putting a little bow on it for me, going like, wow, that's spectacular. He like M. Night Shyamalan, he was dead the whole time. That's amazing. And you walk out feeling great, like, oh, he's the bad guy in Unbreakable. Like, oh, I didn't even see, you're right. God. Oh, gasp. You know what I mean? And with Boogie Nights, it was like, there's one of my favorite scenes is when he meets Eddie, the new kid on the block.
Yeah.
And he's just like, who the fuck's this? Like they're in the nightclub, you know what I mean? And like, cause like especially as a comic, we've always felt like that we're very competitive, but also supportive. So we're like, who's this fucking new guy that just rolled into town?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but then at the end, it's like he still has the talent. He still has the big dick that he can swing around.
Yep.
Like there's no big dick in Magnolia. There's just frogs.
There is no big dick in Magnolia.
And so the difference is,
man, we need that.
We need the big dick. So when I was 22, it was like, hey man, there's no big payoff here. They're just frogs, and I'm really confused because I haven't seen enough movies, I haven't read enough books to really understand what exactly is happening right now. Versus when I'm 41, almost 42 in March, I'm like, oh, this is just him flexing his directorial muscle. This is just him like, here's a list of actors that I want to work with. I'm the hottest young director out here. He started off with, it was supposed to be a short movie,
Yeah. He said he wanted to write something that was self-contained and small and could be shot for a small budget.
Yeah, and you could essentially make a movie about how a misogynistic guy who likes to teach men how to like have game and pick up ladies has this really fractured relationship with his father. You can make a movie about a game show host who may or may not have molested his daughter and the dynamic between those two and the damage that causes. Those two storylines are very powerful.
Right.
But then you add in William H. Macy, and now you've got John C. Reilly, and you've got like Stanley the piss pants fucking
Stanley
kid.
pissy quiz boy kid.
You know what I mean? And then like, but it seems like all of other like Paul Thomas Anderson's movies at least had some type of payoff at the end. And maybe I just don't know enough about movies to really understand it. Like I read Roger Ebert's review of the movie. He put this on his great movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, he really, but he always went for the artsy kind of like.
Well, there's a lot of people who put this movie on like the great movies list.
Yeah.
And I truly don't understand why this movie, out of Paul Thomas Anderson's movies, gets the kind of shine and recognition that it does.
Yeah.
I think Paul Thomas Anderson has, since Magnolia and before Magnolia, Boogie Nights is an amazing movie. And since Magnolia, he's made like great movies and varied movies too. Very different. Like,
oh yeah.
I remember in college I watched Punch Drunk Love. And I was like,
this is another movie I hated.
Punch Drunk Love is, but it's, you know what? I didn't hate it, but I didn't particularly love the movie.
Yeah.
But I thought it was better than Magnolia, and I was like, you know what? I appreciate what he's doing here. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't walk out of Magnolia thinking that.
Right.
And that is the thing that I think I felt the most. I don't want to say betrayed because it's not like Paul Thomas Anderson owes me anything as a director. Right. I'm not like, oh, fuck you, PTA.
Yeah.
I'm not. Don't take my calls.
Right.
How dare you?
Yeah.
But I don't feel like, based on his whole cinematic oeuvre, is that the word? I always forget that's how you pronounce it. But it feels like this movie is a movie that he would have made better if he had made it as like his 9th or 10th movie instead of his 3rd movie.
For sure. I mean, and he's even said that he would cut that out, which shows a lot of maturity for him to yell. But then, like, I saw Inherent Vice, when that came out, and I was just like, dude, he defines, him and Aronofsky define this like go fuck yourself kind of storytelling.
Yeah,
like this is the story I'm going to tell. I want to tell it, love it, hate it. You know, and to get in there, you know, you like The Wrestler, fucking brilliant.
Yes,
You know what I
I
mean?
love The Wrestler.
And I loved Mother, but then Black Swan, and I'm like, I want to like this movie so much, but I don't know what's going on. And you know what I mean? And again,
That's how I felt about Pi.
yeah,
I was like, I watched Pi. I was like, oh, everybody says this movie's brilliant, but is it?
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, what happened?
right. And I just don't know. Again, I don't know. And I think it's just what a personal taste is.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, like I love his characters. I love his scripts, but sometimes they just don't come together. And maybe that's just me saying I need a payoff in the movie. See, I thought there was a huge payoff in Mother. And I was like, this fucking movie's weird. And I was like, well, because the way they set up the trailer is like some scary movie. It's not a scary movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's about like Mother Nature. And it's about like, you know what I mean? Like there's like very clear themes there about like how we're abusing our own society. But like,
Right.
you know what I mean? But like it didn't seem like with Magnolia there was like this bow on it. It was just
That's the thing. It's like, I mean, going back to Phantom Thread. Phantom Thread is a movie that, again, trailers totally did it a disservice.
Yeah.
You have no idea what the fuck the movie's going to be about watching the trailer for it.
I thought it was about a tailor or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, on the face of it, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But once you actually watch the movie, you see what it's about. And at the end, there is a bow that's tied.
Yeah.
And it's not a giant bow with a bunch of frilly ribbon attached to it and giant, glossy, shiny wrapping paper. It's a small package.
Yeah.
But it's well made, and you at least see it, and you're like, this is a movie that feels complete.
Yeah.
It's not a movie that feels like we started one thing and then decided, oh, I'm gonna keep building on and piling onto this, and then by the end of it, you get a movie that it just feels kind of like a mess.
Yeah.
And it's not the worst mess in the world.
Mhm.
Like I've certainly seen way worse movies than Magnolia,
Yeah.
but it's not a movie I would want to try and watch again.
Here's my question for you though. Do you think his best movies? He's already made his best movies. Because you see like almost like a life whatever cycle for directors sometimes.
Right.
Like M. Night Shyamalan. I mean, the guy peaked so early.
He
You know what
did.
I mean?
It's such a shame, Paul, of M. Night Shyamalan's
And
career.
he's gotten so commercial, you know, and I didn't even see Glass, but like, you know, it's gotten so commercial that it's just like, okay, but like There Will Be Blood. I thought There Will Be Blood. They say like The Master was his masterpiece, but I thought There Will Be Blood was.
I agree. I think There Will Be Blood is a better movie than The Master.
Yeah.
And you know, There Will Be Blood is my all-time favorite movie.
Yeah.
And so far nothing has topped it. And I've watched There Will Be Blood multiple times. The Master I really like. I think
Yeah.
The Master is an amazing movie. Probably, I think it's probably like top 25 for me.
Okay.
But having watched Phantom Thread, I will say that I do think that Paul Thomas Anderson is still a great filmmaker, and I do think he is capable of topping his best work
Mm-hmm.
because he's approaching things in a different way than he did now.
Okay.
Because
Which shows maturation.
exactly
and evolution.
He's matured and he's evolving as an artist, and I'm very intrigued to see what he does next.
Yeah. Because Inherent Vice just left me going like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know?
I haven't seen Inherent Vice, and
Oh.
it's because I heard so many people detracting Inherent Vice that it made me wary of watching it because I didn't want to feel disappointed by a director that I really liked.
And again, like the way he set up the story on that and the way that the characters were like, oh man, we're really going to have like this amazing like crime mystery kind of like along the lines of like almost like a True Detective first season thing. And then at the end, you're like, okay, well, like what? It was just like it was a Big Lebowski ripoff almost,
Yeah,
you know. And it's almost like I saw it and I almost can't even recall it. Like that's how unremarkable that movie was to me. And I went with another comedian, Big Irish Jay, and he's just like, I like guns and lasers and stuff. And he just looked at me, he's like, you're an asshole. I'm like, I was like, sorry.
I mean, who doesn't like guns and lasers though?
Yeah,
I'm with you, Ken.
That's true. No, I get that. Yeah,
Who
yeah.
doesn't like it? Well, if there was a movie that you would recommend people watch instead of Magnolia, and not even necessarily a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, because I think we've sort of covered that he's a very good director. And if you're not familiar with his
Sure.
work, I like how I'm addressing the actual recording device at this point as like they're the audience now. Can you hear me, guys?
Well, you
please.
should. Yeah.
But if you haven't watched Paul Thomas Anderson's body of work, you should. But
Yeah.
is there any movies that maybe are sort of in the vein of Magnolia as being like an ensemble drama, or even just like another favorite movie of yours that you would recommend people watch.
Well, I mentioned it earlier. I think The Wrestler, if you haven't watched The Wrestler,
Great movie.
it's an amazing, it's the same theme, like this idea of redemption, this idea of like this abandoned or abusive parent and the consequences that these decisions make.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you have Mickey Rourke in his really would revitalize his career.
And he should have won the Oscar for this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he plays this like over the whatever hill wrestler who's still trying to cling on to fame. And it's funny because when that movie came out, I had just moved to Los Angeles. I was at a club one night, and there was like this former MMA guy, and he was drunk and he was on coke and he was picking fights. And it was weird because I just looked at him and I'm like, oh man, like he can't let go of the fame. You know what I mean? You know, because so many careers in Los Angeles, you get your 15 minutes or like you get the spotlight and then you spend the rest of your life chasing that spotlight. Right. You know, as opposed to like moving on to that new project or whatever you're going to evolve into. But, here's this guy that had some notoriety in the MMA. And then I saw this movie and I get that. Like there's a reason, like it wasn't the passion for wrestling in that movie. It was this passion for fame that he had been at the top of his game and he no longer was. I think it's so fascinating to look at some of these athletes that like have been in the limelight and look what their lives are like now when their hips and knees aren't working and they can barely get out of bed and they're on, they're abusing pills. Like there's a story there, especially the ones that have had children. So The Wrestler, I thought, is what Magnolia should have been, which is a character study in, the consequences that happen when you ignore the things that you're no longer passionate about, which in this case were their children. Yeah. Or abuse of power in the guy who played the game show contestant. He may or may not have molested his kid. And the fact that he's like, I don't remember, shows this pattern of alcoholism that maybe was unexplored in the movie. Right. So, but if you want like a smaller version of Magnolia, then The Wrestler I thought was a great idea on that theme.
I'm going to echo that. I think it's a great movie and you should watch it if you haven't. Yeah. It's amazing. It's a great movie. Mickey Rourke should have gotten the Oscar for it. A wonderful character study and a movie that Magnolia, if it hadn't been made by a 28-year-old, could have been. Yeah. Ken, thanks for coming to talk about this movie today with me, dude.
Happy to be here, man.
I'm happy to have you. Where can the listeners find you on wherever they want to find you?
My social media is Ken Garr was taken. When I tried getting Ken Garr, it was taken. So Ken Garr was taken on Instagram and Twitter. And you can always check out my dates for upcoming comedy shows at kengarr.com.
Excellent. You can follow me at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, jlightcomedy.com for show dates. And if you like the podcast, please leave a rating, leave a review, subscribe, tell a friend. Yes. I will be thrilled to see what you guys think. I always am, and I really appreciate you guys sticking around. This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.